Faisal, what are you doing here today?
What do you mean, what am I doing here today?
I mean, a person who belongs to a corporate life and a flashy life, dealing with business people, going around the world, and today sitting in this office and going around the world practically as a beggar.
So isn't begging flashy enough? Allah ke naam pe kuch de do. I think that's pretty flashy in that sense as well. Good question. What am I doing here? It's life, it's a life journey. It takes you to different places and opportunities knock on your door. Throughout my practical life, or let's say responsible life, I've never said no to opportunities that knock on my door. So having led a corporate life for 20 years, this opportunity knocked on my door, and a lot of the times in the corporate life it's about money, but this opportunity was more about well-being. So I thought, how long? I'm probably going to retire and keep making money out of what I'm doing. This is a good opportunity. Still a little bit in my youth left to do something more meaningful. So working hard, not as rewarding financially, but much more rewarding spiritually, and it's much more of a soulful job. So I think I'm much more richer than I was before. I'm much more happier than I was before, because I know I'm working hard and it's helping people rather than helping individuals, helping people who really need their help in that sense. So,
wow, that's a wonderful answer.
I'm much more happier in this job than I was in the corporate life I was leading.
Wow. So I'm sure that you must have faced a lot of challenges moving from that life to this life. Let's talk about our Desi people that you had to deal with.
Yeah, when you talk about Desi people, it reminds me of a sher. It's an Urdu sher.
Yeah, please.
ठोकरें खाकर भी ना संभले. क्या था? ठोकरें खाकर भी ना संभले.
वाह वाह.
तो मुसाफिर का नसीब पत्थरों ने तो अपना फर्ज अदा कर दिया.
Hi.
So yes, it was an eye opener for me to be able to have this cultural shift in what I used to do.
Right.
It has its own challenges. Every society has its own challenges. I have to say, our Muslim community, and more importantly our Desi community, has its own challenges. There are very practical and very visible reasons why we're behind in this social race. That's the global social race.
Yeah.
It's very obvious why we're not doing as well as Muslims.
Yes.
And the Western societies and everything like that in this race are taking ahead. It makes much more sense why we're being battered as Muslims around the world. We point our fingers, but we have a lot to work on within the community. We have a lot of improvements to make, a lot of cultural baggage that we need to let go and adapt and evolve, and let's call it let's reevaluate the true spirit of the message of Islam and implement it in our lives. We're just dragged by too much cultural baggage that we have.
Absolutely right. I completely agree with you, especially in the Western world that we live in Manchester, Europe, If we live in these places, we have to leave all these extra baggage that we have, whether it's culture, whether it's religion. You have to adapt yourself where you live in right now.
I agree. There's no benchmark. I wouldn't say the Western society is a benchmark of advancement or modernism. Even though you have to say in the current situation there was a time when the Muslim world was in a same framework. We were making a lot more technological advancements, medical advancements, educational advancements, research-based advancements. When we were doing it, we call it the golden age, and we have to accept we're not in the same boat right now.
True.
The cultural baggage is also changing in Pakistan. Pakistan's transforming. Egypt is transforming, Turkey is transforming. All of these Muslim countries are transforming at a speed that they've never transformed in the past. So you'll have to let go of the cultural baggage there too, in that sense.
Absolutely right. So let's mention few of the challenges that you had to face when you moved into this sector. You have mentioned the culture.
Culture was a bigger challenge. I would say the biggest challenge.
Okay.
In the corporate world, you have a certain level of rapport. You ask someone to do something, it happens, or if someone says they'll do something, 95% of the
Yeah.
time it happens. In our society, when somebody says ho jayega, kar lenge,
Inshallah.
you have to be sure it's not going to happen. You're going to have to chase it. You're going to have to follow it up. The word inshallah is
It's translated as they can.
it is translated as it's never going to happen. And so these are the different challenges I had to really
Yes.
adapt myself according to what the cultural norms here were. And of course, the fact that our society has, let's not call it society, let's call it a sector-based,
Okay.
sector-based expectations that I had to bridge. The next challenge for me was, of course, I'd worked in my previous career for 20 years. I'd built a reputation, I'd built a rapport in the organization. I was a fairly senior level of a corporate executive. To have to leave all of that behind and work in a completely new sector amongst people who don't know me as well as I was known in my previous organization. So, people get to say you have to hear things like, I was hoping you were going to get somebody from the sector. I was hoping we'll have somebody who knows what they're talking about. These type of things to listen to is very hard in the beginning.
ये कल का बच्चा कहाँ
ये
से
कल
आ
का
गया?
बच्चा कहाँ से आ गया? And especially our let's call them our first generation
Yes.
elders, and to be able to deal with them in let's say fairly still young capacity in our I've noticed in this sector and in the Muslim community, young people don't get many opportunities to become leaders of organizations. So when that does happen, the people of our older generation don't necessarily like it. उनको हजम नहीं होता.
Yeah.
And it was my responsibility to be able to adapt so that I'm less of a threat to these people, less of a threat to the sector, less of a threat to the status quo that was established, not just within this organization, within the sector.
Right.
So to make a name for yourself all over again, I was really hoping I wouldn't have to do that at this stage of my life, to start all over from scratch. But when I look at my 20-year career, I've done that frequent times. I've gone into new locations, I've gone into new countries, I've gone into new teams, and I've had to build my rapport all over again. When you're working in a local environment, people don't really care how big you are in the organization. They care about how you relate to them.
Yes.
So you have to build your rapport with them right from the get-go. And I've had that ability where I put myself in risky situations. I put myself out there, I let go of my comfort zones, and I expose myself. Let's see how that happens. And this is one of those things, and alhamdulillah, I think I've made a good progress.
That's good. That's really good.
Space.
Now we are in the third week of Ramadan. What is the charity doing in Ramadan? I mean, it's a charity, you must have projects for Ramadan. I can see some dates over there. Tell us about it.
Dates is a very beautiful project. It's very close to my heart. It started off from sketching things and the concept of creating these little small commercial opportunities for the charity to earn some profits, so that we have to use as less as possible of charitable funds to be able to come up with for our administrative marketing costs and stuff like that. So what I've done is we've started off this commercial project where we're going to be selling dates. We try to make it as ethical as possible, source the dates from the right farmers. Our volunteers even went to Palestine and picked the dates from the Palestinian farms owned by Palestinian and from the trees. So we made sure the dates were sourced ethically.
Right.
And then at the same time, we're also making sure that the product is professional. It can be very presentable in a very nice supermarket too. So the quality is there, and we're working on the quantity to try and sell as many of these boxes as possible, and the profits of this are pay the salary for the staff that we have over here as well. And our ambition is to have 3 or 4 or 5 different commercial projects like this one, where we can generate enough profits, establish a commercial entity and commercial activity. At the same time, all the profits generated from that commercial activity are going to be supporting the charity in that sense too.
Wow, that's very creative. Anything else you're doing in Ramadan?
Well, we're doing all sorts. We're saving lives, we're feeding lives, we're educating people, we're sheltering orphans. Lots of different things that are going on. So I'll just mention some of the most important projects that we focus on during Ramadan. We've got the 1 million meal project, which aims to feed 1 million people
1 million.
1 million
Wow.
people, and the campaign of it is $1 one meal, £1 one meal, $1 one meal, €1 one meal. The menu of the week is different, so depending on the currency fluctuation, whatever you've paid as a dollar, it will convert into a meal. You pay a dollar here in the UK, it's going to convert into a meal in different parts of the world.
Okay.
And in different forms as well. It's also distributed as cooked meals. It's distributed as dry raw material for meals.
Okay.
And in some places people come into our location and they eat. In some places we're also delivering food in households in that sense too. That's the largest campaign that we focus on during Ramadan.
Okay.
The second largest campaign, which we launched last year, is the Orphan Complex. We want to build a state-of-the-art orphan facility for 500 girls and 500 boys. The ambition comes and is an evolution of our existing Aghosh project. And having run that for 15 years, now the children from that Aghosh are graduating. So now we want to build a state-of-the-art orphan complex for girls and for boys, which caters for 500 girls and 500 boys. It needs to have all the modern facilities, it needs to have all the safeguarding incorporated into the infrastructure and the construction of it. It needs to have parks, it needs to have gardens, it needs to have playgrounds, it needs to have a good administrative system, it also needs to have a sustainability model too. So we're dreaming and we're planning and aiming for this to be built in Pakistan, in Lahore, where we can rejuvenate, restart, and a much better Aghosh project than we did for the last 15 years.
Okay.
And that we're hoping that project will be one of the largest in Pakistan, not just in Pakistan, but I think in that whole region, specifically for orphans only.
That's right. Dates. We got the Dastarkhan that you mentioned. We've got the orphan care complex.
Yeah.
It's wonderful. The essence of Ramadan is giving, especially people around the world. They, especially in Ramadan, they collect the zakat, all the sadaqat, and everyone wants to give more than normal days. Correct. Of course, because it's Ramadan, they expect a lot more compensation from Allah Almighty. So how do you connect with donors, especially in this month?
Ramadan is amazing. It's a season of giving. It's a season of blessings. I believe it's apart from the donation side of things, it has a huge spiritual value too.
True.
A huge amount of souls, people who are spiritually awake, they seek Ramadan as an excuse to reconnect,
right,
to revive, to rejuvenate, and to bring their spiritual self back in order.
Yeah.
If throughout the whole year that they've sort of taken a different route or gone off the motorway, this is the time to reconnect back in their motorway. And that's why you see mosques are full, and the scholars are trying their best to connect with all of these souls who throughout the whole year, the hustle and bustle of life, they lost their way, to get them back into their position. And in that whole spirit, the giving aspect of it makes a big impact too. It's very rewarding in the sense of its blessings, but the blessings have to reflect in some way. I think it adds barakah in your life.
Yes.
It adds barakah in your money, it adds barakah in whatever good that you're trying to achieve. The aspect of giving adds much more mileage to it. So if you were to take 2 steps because of the fact that you've given with the intention of pleasing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it adds much more value to your activity, your actions that you're taking. So during this month, we connect with our donors in so many different ways. We call them, we speak to them, we organize community iftar. We start connecting with them much before Ramadan too, to let them know, don't forget us during this Ramadan. Right. We've got our marketing campaigns, our direct mail and everything else going on too. However we connect, we want to make sure that they get a positive image of who we are, what we do, and everything that we've done with them throughout this whole year gives them a good motivation to give.
The appreciation, I think it's a must. When someone donates something, he is being appreciated by Allah Almighty, of course. Correct. But if you also appreciate them, that means a lot. Right.
So we're just facilitators, huh? We are not the transactors.
Yes.
We are just the means of the transaction getting to its objectives. Yes. So yes, we are there to appreciate. Yes. But our key role is to facilitate, and the role of facilitation only establishes by trust. If you don't trust us, you're not going to be sure if your aid is going to get to the right people. Just like a bank transaction. So when you're giving your money to a bank and transferring it to another bank account, you expect the transaction to work.
Yes.
It's the same way that it works over here. They donate to us with the same expectation that they've made a transaction, and this organization is going to transfer it to those people. And more importantly, it's also to give it to them as if it was their own money.
Yeah.
So
they don't feel like.
Correct.
Yeah.
So when you get paid your salary from your employer,
Yes.
you don't go back to them saying, thank you for paying me,
Yeah.
and I'm so grateful and I appreciate it, because it's your right.
Right.
And I believe when somebody deserving gets that aid, it is their right. I even go to the extent to say that the person giving, it's not their money.
True.
So whenever they're donating, they should never think that they're giving it from their own money. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala just placed it in your bucket. It was meant to be for those people. It was their money.
Yes.
So when they're receiving it, they're taking as if, yeah, finally I got my money back. That's how they should feel. Finally I got my money back, which was mine.
Yes.
And that's how you should be giving aid to people.
So what I would say here is that the charity is really doing a favor to a person who wants to donate to someone. You get their money and donate to the one who deserves.
There's no favors. It's not a favor. We are grateful for the trust.
Yes.
I believe they're doing us a favor by trusting us. They could be giving it to anybody, or they could giving it directly to other means, which is a very inefficient way of donating, because you don't have a systematic organization following up on everything that's going on.
Okay. We have to.
So I'm on air now. That's me getting too excited during the interview.
Okay.
So anyway, so we're grateful that they trust us and they donate to us.
Right. Okay. That's cool. We got the projects. We got the little bit of your introduction. Now let's talk about just a little bit. What would you say to the young generation out there right now? Some are struggling at work. Some are struggling in their families. Some are struggling, in their personal lives. We are in Ramadan. From your sector, from your charity, what message would you like to give them in this Ramadan, relating it to your charity?
My message to young people would be of self-confidence. They must believe in themselves, because just while we're talking, you're a scholar, right?
Yes.
You've spent how many years? 7 years? You've spent 7 years of your life educating yourself to become a scholar. We're almost, let's call it, not almost the same age, but let's call them, we're still in our young age too.
Yes.
But I've spent a huge amount of my time in the corporate sector, building a career for myself and everything like that. I go to a lot of mosques and I listen to a lot of sermons and I listen to a lot of shayukh speaking too. And when I watch the young people listening to them, a lot of young people aspire to become a scholar like you. But I believe all those young people who are not scholars, they're just as valuable. I don't think you, having spent 7 years in I hope you don't feel that way, that because you've spent 7 years learning Islam, it makes you more valuable to Islam than me. And I think that's how young people need to believe. You don't need to have a religious attire, a beard, and 7 years of education to make yourself more useful sometimes than a scholar.
Right.
I'll give you a very small example. If somebody is a very good orator, he spent 7 years in learning Islam, he delivers amazing lectures. If he doesn't know how to operate YouTube, how useful can he be in delivering his message?
Absolutely right.
His audience will be 200 people, 300 people, 400 people when they come to the mosque.
Yeah.
And then a young person who's got no Islamic education, probably not as practicing in that sense too as much, but he knows how to operate YouTube. Now tell me, is he not as useful or not even more useful than that person who's delivering that lecture? So you become instrumental, and that's, you walk into the mosque, doesn't matter if you pray 5 times a day or not, it's your own journey that you need to fulfill, and I hope you achieve that too. But you walk into a mosque, head held high, I'm just as useful as you, Mr. Imam Sab, because that's what I do.
Right.
And that's how our scholars and everyone needs to make young people feel when they walk into the mosque. they're instrumental to the success of whatever that Imam is trying to achieve. So be self-confident, I would say. Go into places as if you're just as impactful as anybody else can be. Don't be shy of any of the, if you're not a true follower, if you're not practicing, don't be shy. They're your own journey struggles that you do. But walk in with confidence, be full of yourself.
That's a beautiful message for our viewers. Be confident, be strong, and be you. Be what you are. Don't try to copy someone else, because there's not going to be another Elon Musk. There's not going to be another Bill Gates. You have to be your own Elon Musk. You have to be yourself, and you have to create your own legacy. That's the message of today. Thank you so very much, Faisal.
Thank you.
It was a wonderful talk.
Appreciate it.
And yes, I guess the most important thing right now in this time is the transparency. Of course, how the charities are working, how they do, as you mentioned, that you guys are working as the facilitators and the middle guys. Of course, people give you and you give them. And of course, people trust you. So I hope everything goes well and this Ramadan becomes a very blessed for you and your team.
Yeah.
And I'll see you around.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Take care. Bye-bye.